Sitting at work every day, the station was always set to Fox News in the break rooms that I frequented. And this is not directed specifically at Fox News, although it is directed in part at the particular station that I was forced to watch, which is in northern Kentucky in the Florence area. There was no way to change the channel. And it sucked because a lot of what they didn't interest me. A lot of what they said didn't interest me. So, what can I tell you? Let me put it to you this way. The news has always engaged in a certain degree of product promotion. But with the advent of the internet becoming the main source of news information for people, that has gotten intensely and, in my opinion, illegally, or at the very least unethically, because sometimes the law doesn't cover things it should cover, and it protects people who should not be protected, and it doesn't protect the people who need help. So I'll give you an example. On this Fox station, they will periodically have somebody come in to talk about what their company offers. Most often, these people are producing food and or beverages. And so oftentimes in their news reporting, they are at a specific restaurant or bar. So if you can imagine, if you have ever had any problems with addiction, or you've had poor willpower when you see certain things, you're just like, oh, I got to have that. Imagine that you're an alcoholic and you're watching the news, and then suddenly they go to this segment where they're at a bar and everybody looks like they're having fun, and suddenly you're like, I got to call my AA sponsor, and they end up getting back into drinking alcohol. Fortunately, there's nothing promoting heroin or anything else, but these news whores, people, are required by their employer to be involved in segments where they promote a business. Now, you would think that would be good, except for number one, they don't seem to care if the food that's being served is bad for health. They don't care if the alcoholics watching their channel are going to be screwed over by seeing that segment at a bar, or even on the set of the news program. They will sometimes have alcohol being promoted. They don't seem to care. And there have been many cases around the nation where news organizations will sell for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever dollars, a spot on the news, and the news company does not bother to vet what they're selling. So they could be saying, well, I'm selling snake oil, and it fixes everything. Your toe fell off. Well, it'll regrow your toe. They won't review and they won't investigate sometimes these claims that are being made. There are people who have paid for an ad spot with the news people, or with somebody who is respected in the community because he or she has been on that news channel many times, and has been represented as being honest and a great guy and all that stuff, even though he's actually secretly a criminal. He pays for them to lie about him. There have been people who actually said, oh, it's FDA approved, or FDA cleared, or it has been shown to cure this thing. It has been given the stamp of approval by the AHA or the ADA or whatever. They will flat out lie on television to the audience, knowing full well that, especially if it's like syndicated and then it's national, they're lying to the entire country. And these news companies don't necessarily review. So here's my point. If you're watching the news and you see them drinking a soda and you can see the brand, they're holding it so you can see the brand on purpose. It's not a coincidence that when you watch a podcast on YouTube and you see products, you can actually read the labels very easily. That is a deliberate product placement. So they are relying on you being weak-willed enough to say, oh, I see that, and this famous person has it, so I better get it. They're manipulating you. They're controlling you. And when they do these business promotions, these product promotions on the news, because from the time I was a small boy, the news people were regarded as very special, reliable, trustworthy people. And these news companies have taken advantage of that perception and forced these news people to be involved in promoting products and companies, even when, and this is true, even when it's, say, a financial company, they are told, say this about this person in the financial company, oh, they're great, they're amazing, they have helped so many people achieve financial freedom, and yet, the person actually has a criminal record for defrauding people, for losing their money, and failing to do a good job as a financial advisor. So, unfortunately, and I see this more and more these days in many other ways that have nothing to do with products and services, but have to do with politicians, where the news media has now become one of the largest constant platforms of one politician or another, or one party or another. Fox, you keep on hearing about how Trump is great. You keep on you go to a liberal channel, you keep on hearing how Biden is great. They're both crap. I'm sorry, but they're both garbage. They're both evil. And yet, you're constantly barraged and conditioned and indoctrinated and finally brainwashed into believing that what they're telling you is true, because they bring on so many experts who say the same things. So sadly, even when it comes to crimes of passion, crimes where there is violence committed, you can't even, in those cases, trust that what the news is reporting is accurate, because they are after sensation. They're after numbers. They're after money. So they will say whatever they think might be correct without fact-checking, which, like, now this used to actually happen when I was young. They would fact-check and they would get sued if they lied on television or they gave the wrong information. They could be sued. And now it's a constant barrage. I mean, I don't want to get into specifics because people are going to be saying, oh, you're this or you're that. Or no, I'm not. I try to be very logical and consider the facts carefully. I look at independent sources. I look at source footage to try to come to my own conclusions, because there are all these crazy allegations being stated, and they show you a tiny 5-second clip, and that is used to manipulate you and make you angry. Why? Because somewhere someone is going to benefit. So say, for example, you are power hungry and you are unfortunately not somebody who has power and wealth. But you start some kind of a movement, a grassroots movement. And in conjunction with that movement, you start presenting alternative facts, which is another way of saying that you lie. You manipulate the truth to serve your needs, to make people want to come to you for help, when in actuality, you're stirring the pot, you're making things worse, and sometimes you're causing people to get hurt or even killed because all you care about is power. Now, I'm not saying that's anybody watching my video, all 5 of you, but it is what happens a lot. And I'm not going to name names of people who have taken advantage of the system this way. But I have seen over and over and over again a claim being stated that so-and-so was hurt by so-and-so. And there's video documentation of it. And when I look at the video documentation, 9 times out of 10, what I see is that what was presented as fact is a lie, and what was presented as a lie is fact. There is an organization called The Color of Change. I joined them many, many years ago when I first heard about them. And for a long time, I didn't hear much about them. They seemed very, low key. And then there were a bunch of things that happened with some black people in which The Color of Change made specific statements in emails to all of us who had joined their thing through email. And at first I was like, holy crap, this is horrible. We've got to do something about this. Then I actually took the time to watch the video footage of what had happened. And what I saw was that The Color of Change had lied. They had said the opposite of the truth. They had accused a police officer of brutality. If the police officer wasn't black, they also accused them of racism. And what I saw was that actually many times the police were innocent. They were defending themselves. Now, there were cases where the police fudged up, such as with George Floyd being on his neck like that. I'm sorry. I know he was hopped up on opioids and he was probably dying because of the opioids. But having somebody's knee and half their body weight pressed down on your neck and your head is not going to help keep you alive. And the guy wasn't struggling. And yes, he was a bit difficult when they got him into the car, but he wasn't struggling when he was down on the ground, and they didn't help him even when people were telling them from the sidewalk that he's not breathing. Check. They didn't want to check. They just stayed on him. Now, I know there's that black commentator, Glenn something or other, who said, oh, it's all BS. It was all because of the drugs. He was a horrible human being. And yeah, maybe he was a horrible human being. However, the cops contributed to his death. End of story. When I saw that podcast a few weeks ago where Glenn was making that claim, I watched again the clips. I found a more complete revision of what happened from multiple viewpoints, whereas I had not been able to find some of the viewpoints shortly after George Floyd was murdered or killed. It was, I'm going to say it was involuntary manslaughter, but yeah. And then when I had seen it originally, I was pretty convinced. And then I saw conflicting information about whether George was on drugs at the time or not. He was. And conflicting information about whether or not the drugs would have been in a high enough dose to actually cause him to stop breathing. Well, he was complaining that he was having trouble breathing before any of that happened. When the first came, within minutes of the police coming, he was talking about he's having trouble breathing. When they were taking him to the police car, he was having trouble with breathing then. The whole time he was having trouble breathing. And then there was the case of the guy, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, who fell asleep drunk at a Wendy's drive-thru. And then they were having a very good conversation, but the moment the police tried to handcuff him because he was driving drunk, he started resisting arrest. He took tasers, and then they shot him dead. Now, when somebody's shooting at you with a taser, and then the taser is empty, you don't unload a gun in them, because you're supposed to use equivalent force. You're not supposed to go a step up. That's illegal. And this qualified immunity stuff is crap. The other guy still had his taser. So why didn't they tase him? Why didn't they tackle him? Because once that taser was used and he missed the police officer, they could have tackled him to the ground. But no, they pulled out a gun and killed him. And in that case, color of change was right. But there was another one where a black police officer killed a suspect who was with a man that had a warrant for his arrest. The man with the warrant for his arrest, when the police came to get him, he was like, okay, you can have me. But his friend, as this black police officer is approaching his friend, he pulls out a gun and aims it at the police officer's head from a few feet away and tries to pop his head off. Fortunately, he failed, and then he tackled the guy. And as the guy fell, and he struggled so that he could turn his body and continue to shoot at other police officers in the area around him. And he ended up getting killed. But the way the color of change spun it, it was police brutality. The claims they made were completely spurious. So, I know I strayed off of my topic of news becoming advertising, but there are many different ways to advertise things, and some of those things are ideological or ideas or belief systems. They're not necessarily what you would think of as an advertisement, because it's not a product or a service, but it is, because an ideology gives control to certain people. A religion gives control. So when you see that kind of stuff on a news channel, you should be very careful, because that news channel is no longer fair and unbiased. It doesn't deserve a Pulitzer Prize. It deserves to go out of business. And if they are doing product placements and they are doing paid advertisements where they promote somebody who they haven't even vetted to make sure that person is okay, that is just categorically wrong. So please be careful what you watch, what you listen to. I've seen newsletters go out by mail when I was a mail carrier. I didn't read them. I just looked at the envelope, calmed down. I have seen newsletters sent by email. I have seen videos. I have seen it all, and it's just, it sickens me, because they're taking advantage of us. They're twisting our understanding of reality to suit them, to make them richer, to make them more powerful. So be careful. Be skeptical. Always be skeptical when people, it doesn't matter whether they're newscasters or politicians or whatever, be skeptical. Try to get independent verification. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a great day.